أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Let's continue our lesson. وَإِنِ امْرَأَةٌ خَافَتْ مِنْ بَعْلِهَا نُشُوزًا أَوْ إِعْرَاضًا. And if a woman fears from her husband contempt or aversion. Previously in Surah An-Nisa, we learnt about the opposite case, in which the man expects nushuz from his wife. The man, in khiftum, that he fears, that he knows, he expects nushuz from his wife. What was he told? That if your wife is disrespecting you, what should you do? Pronounce divorce, get rid of her? What should you do? Beat her up until she listens? No. Certain commands were given that you follow these steps. Why? In order to save your marriage. What were those steps? فَعِظُوهُنَّ. That you advise them, you admonish them, you talk to them. If they don't listen, despite your discussing the matter with them, then ignore them a little bit. And if they don't, then even go to the extent of lightly punishing them, physically punishing them. Why? In order to save your marriage. In order to save your marriage. Not to harm the woman, but just to save your marriage. Now over here also, if the woman senses, if the woman sees nushuz from her husband, what should she do? Go to the court and demand khula? No. What is she told to do over here? Compromise. Why? Again, in order to save the marriage. In order to save the marriage. Because generally what happens? If the man is unfair to the woman, she wants divorce immediately. If the man doesn't like his wife, what does he do? He wants to give divorce immediately. Literally, on the slightest issues, on the smallest issues even sometimes, people separate, couples separate, and they end up in a divorce. And how did it begin? Just a slight difference. People are different. And the way of dealing with problems is not by cutting off the other person, but by doing something, compromising, advising, sometimes punishing, doing different things. Why? In order to make the marriage work. Because marriage is something that is a serious relationship. It's not just two people living together happily. No. It's two people who have made an aqd. It's a contract. Aqdun nikah is a contract. It's an ahd. And the ahd, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will question about on the Day of Judgment. When the marriage contract is made, the wali is there, the relatives are there, it has to be announced, the witnesses are there, the mahar is given. I mean, this is something serious. You cannot just break it just because you don't like the other person, just because you had an argument with them. No, you have to do something in order to save the marriage. So both have been commanded to do something in order to save the marriage. And if you look at it, sometimes when a husband and wife don't get along with one another, what happens? They end up in a divorce. They cannot stand one another. They don't want to compromise. They end up in a divorce, and who gets affected? It's the children. It's the children. So for the sake of your children, maintain this marriage. Keep this marriage. Even if it means that you have to compromise on something. But for the greater good of not just your children, but the society at large, compromise, do something or the other in order to save this relationship. We see that sometimes the relationship between husband and wife, it doesn't work out. The husband, he wants to give divorce, but at the same time he thinks that if I divorce her, where will she go? Where will she go? What will she do? She will be divorced. What about our child? Similarly, he fears Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because it might not be really a genuine reason, but he wishes to divorce her for some reason or the other. So in that case, there are so many differences. The husband does not like the wife. The wife is not being able to fulfill the rights of the husband. In that case again, instead of finishing the relationship, what should be done? Compromise. Compromise should be done. And that is what is being mentioned in this ayah. وَإِنِ امْرَأَةٌ. And if there is a woman. Which woman? It is said that this is general. Any wife, any woman. Whether young or old. Whether she has children or not. Whether her husband likes her or not. I mean, any woman. Secondly, it is said that imra'atun over here in particular refers to the old woman. The old woman. Whose husband is steering away from her. And he does not have interest in her because of her old age. Because of her old age. And he doesn't find her attractive. In fact, he has to look after her. She is more like a burden upon him. So what does he do? What does he want to do? He wants to divorce her. Now, this is the opinion of some scholars. Now, from this we can also understand that there could be some quality, some characteristic, some trait in the woman that the husband does not like. That the husband does not like. For example, he doesn't like the way she looks. Her appearance. He just cannot stand her. Sometimes it happens the other way around, but sometimes a man cannot just stand the woman. He's not physically attracted to her at all. Now, one thing is that he divorces her. But what is that divorce going to lead to? Perhaps more problems for her. If they have a child, maybe problems for the child. Similarly, it's possible that the woman, she cannot bear children. The woman cannot bear children. Now, in that case, the husband really wants children. So what should he do? Divorce her just because she cannot have children? Is that fair? No. Now, the fact is that the husband, he wants children, but she cannot bear children. So, should they be forced to stay together? Should he be forced to like her? Should he be forced to keep her? In that case, what is being mentioned here is that the woman, what should she do? She should compromise on some of her rights. Why? In order to make the marriage last. That she's old, she's more like a burden on him. She says, okay, fine. You don't give me this money. Just let me live here with dignity. Don't give me all that money. Similarly, she says, okay, if, for example, he has 2 wives, she says, okay, don't sleep with me, but just let me be your wife. Don't send me away from here. Because if she's sent away, if she's divorced, in case of the old woman, where is she going to go? Maybe her parents have died. Maybe her siblings are in some other country. Where is she going to go? So in that case, the woman is not really fulfilling the rights of the husband. The husband is not happy with her. In a way, he has the right to divorce her. But it's better for the marriage to last. In that case, the woman can compromise on some of her rights. So وَإِنِ امْرَأَةٌ, if there is a woman, خَافَتْ مِنْ بَعْلِهَا, who fears from her husband. What does she fear from her husband? Nushuzan, ill treatment. Khafat. Over here, khafat, khawf is about something. Khawf is to expect something dangerous, to expect something harmful. And it scares a person. Just the thought of that harmful thing, the expectation of that harmful thing, what happens? It scares a person. So basically, khawf is about something that is certain. Khawf is certain fear. So over here, what it means by fear is that it's not that she assumes, she just imagines. No, she knows for sure. She fears that her husband is ill-treating her, and this is getting out of hand. He is not respecting her, this is getting out of hand. And at the same time, she doesn't want to leave. They know that they shouldn't divorce because it's going to create further problems. So if she fears from her husband, and the word that has been used for husband over here is ba'al. The word ba'al is used for husband specifically. It is used for the husband specifically. And the word zawj is used for both husband and wife. So if she fears from her husband, nushuzan. What is nushuz? What is nushuz? Literally, arrogance, pride. It is basically to lift up one's head against the other. So basically it is arrogance. And nushuz is violation of marital duties. Violation of marital duties, marital obligations. So the word nushuz is used for the husband, and it's also used for the wife. Previously we read nushuz in the context of the wife. What is the nushuz of the woman? That she violates the marital duties. What are the duties on the woman? That she has to obey the husband. Similarly, his sexual haqq as well. She has to give that. There are different types of rights, different types of duties that are imposed on the husband and the wife. So if the woman does not fulfill them, what is that? Nushuz. Similarly, there are some duties that are imposed upon the man. And what are they? We learned earlier, وَعَاشِرُوهُنَّ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ. It's a command that you live with the women. How? In a manner that is appropriate, in a kind way. That you provide them, what? Good accommodation. You provide them with their necessities and their needs. Similarly, when you deal with them, when you speak to them, it should be in a manner that is ma'roof. That their rights must be fulfilled. So, if the woman fears from her husband nushuz, what does it mean? That, for example, the man, he does not spend on her. The man, he treats her with disrespect. He speaks very harshly with her. Why? In order to get rid of her. Sometimes men do this, why? In order to get rid of their wives. Why? Because if they're going to ill-treat her, what is she going to do? She's going to ask for khul. And sometimes this nushuz is just because the man doesn't like the woman. He just doesn't like her. Just as in the case of the wife doesn't like the husband. Here, the husband doesn't like the wife. So if she fears from the husband nushuzan that he's not fulfilling his marital duties, أو إعراضا, or aversion, indifference. إعراض is from the root letters عين راضات, and إعراض is to turn away from someone, to avoid someone, to ignore someone. And it is basically to turn away from someone with one's heart. In the sense that you turn your heart away from someone. You don't like them. You ignore them. And I have a question. Is i'rad worse or nushuz worse? I'rad. For the woman, i'rad is much worse. Because in nushuz, at least he's talking to her. But in i'rad, he doesn't even come to see her. He doesn't even talk to her. She calls him, he doesn't respond. She sends him a text, he doesn't respond. Nushuzan aw i'radan. What is i'rad? Rejection, ignoring, disinterest. That he turns his face away from her. He is averse to her. And he is interested in someone else. It happens. This is real life. So in this case, what should the woman do? Bye. I'm leaving you. No. فَلَا جُنَاحَ عَلَيْهِمَا. Then there is no blame upon them two. There is no sin upon them two. Upon who two? The husband and the wife. What? أَن يُصْلِحَا بَيْنَهُمَا. That they do sulh between the two of them. That they come to some mutual agreement between the two of them. What? Sulhan, a reconciliation. So there is no blame upon them if they have some mutual agreement between themselves of what? Of some compromise. What is a sulh referring to over here? Some compromise. Now, over here, it is said, la junaha, there is no blame. What does it show? That if otherwise this compromise is made, it would be sinful. It would be incorrect. Because the duties that have been imposed upon the husband, who has imposed them? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The duties that have been imposed upon the wife, who has imposed them? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if either of them don't fulfill those duties, isn't that sinful? Of course it is. Yes, in leaving out those duties, you are being unjust to the other person, but who are you disobeying? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So over here, it is said, La junaha alayhima, there is no blame upon them, meaning if they do some compromise of the duties with mutual agreement, then they are not sinful, because otherwise it is sinful. Now what is a sulh? What is this compromise? What is this reconciliation? This is basically that the wife, she forfeits, she gives up, she concedes, she basically gives up some or all of her rights. Some or all of her rights. For example, provision, nafaqa. That she says, okay, you used to give me 1,000, now you can give me 200. For example, if the man, he has 2 wives, and one he really likes. Why? Because she has children, she cooks really nice, and the other wife, she's more like a burden on him. He wants to get rid of her. So in that case, what does she do? That don't divorce me, keep me, it's okay. Just give me less money as nafaqa. Similarly, less or a smaller dwelling. That, for example, she has a house to herself, and the second wife has a house to herself. But the second wife, because of the children, the house is becoming small for them. And he wants to divorce her so that he can get the house. Now, in that case, what does she do? Don't divorce me. Put me in a smaller house. I'll compromise on that. Just don't divorce me. But otherwise, if he was to be unjust between the two wives, that he is giving more to one and giving less to the other, what is that? Sinful on his part. It is sinful on his part. But in this case, one wife is willingly compromising. And remember that over here this is yusliha, both of them mutually do sulh. Meaning that the woman, she must agree. She cannot be forced. If she does not agree, then that is not sulh. If she says that, no, I still want 1,000. She says, no, I'm not going to compromise on my rights. You still have to come and see me every day. You still have to do this, you still have to do that. I'm not going to compromise on any of my rights. So she has a right to say that. She's not being forced to do this. This is just a suggestion. There is no sin. If you want to try this in order to maintain your marriage, do it. So the woman has to agree. And if she does not, then the husband either has to give her all of her rights or he's going to decide to divorce her. So, فَلَا جُنَاحَ عَلَيْهِمَا أَن يُصْلِحَ بَيْنَهُمَا صُلْحًا. What does Allah say? وَالصُّلْحُ خَيْرٌ. And the reconciliation, this is much better. It is much better. Much better than what? Much better than nushuz. Much better than i'rad. Much better than what? Talaq. Divorce. It's much better than that. وَالصُّلْحُ خَيْرٌ. And notice it has been said, وَالصُّلْحُ خَيْرٌ. It hasn't been said, وَالصُّلْحُ لَهُمَا خَيْرٌ. That sulh for them too is better. No. This is general. That sulh in every situation, in every case, in every scenario, compromise is always better. Sometimes we want our rights. Why? Because Allah has given them to us. And we demand those rights from the other person. But the other person is not giving. Now one is that you keep fighting, and which will lead to sinfulness, which will lead to more disobedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the other is that you compromise. Say, okay, never mind. It's okay. Allah will give me the ajr. Allah will compensate this loss for me. This sulh is much better. Coming to peaceful terms, this is much better than not coming to peaceful terms. وَأُحْضِرَتِ الْأَنفُسُ الشُّحْ. And the souls, they have been presented, or ever is present in the soul, what? Ash-shuh. Greed. What does it mean by uhdirat? Uhdirat is from the root letters ha-dad-ra. Hadara, hudur. What does it mean? To be present somewhere. So uhdirat, meaning it has been presented. It has been brought. It has been set. It has been supplied. Meaning it's there. What is there? Ash-shuh. Shuh. Where is it? In the heart of the person. In the heart of the person. In the soul of the person. Meaning the souls are ever in its presence. They are never absent from shuh. The souls are always in the presence of shuh. Never are they absent from shuh. So basically, shuh is like a permanent state of the heart. In a way. Shuh is like the permanent state of the heart. A person is always in shuh. What is shuh then? Shuh is from the root letters shin, ha, ha. And shuh is bukhl, stinginess. But what kind of stinginess? That is coupled with hirs, greed. So a person is stingy, that he doesn't want to part from anything. And at the same time, he's very greedy, that he wants more. He's not going to give a penny, and he's greedy for every penny. He doesn't want to give anything, and he wants everything. This is what shuh is. Hirs as well as bukhl. And what is bukhl? That where a person must give, where a person must spend, he doesn't spend. And what is hirs? That it is not the person's haqq, but he still demands it. He still wants it. It is not his right, but still he wants it. And it is said that shuh is such stinginess in which there is greed, and it has become a habit of a person. It has become a habit of a person. So it is such selfishness in which a person is greedy, he is stingy, and it's a habit of a person. So وَأُحْضِرَتِ الْأَنفُسُ الشُّحْ, what does it mean? That every person, what does he have in his heart? Shuh. Which is why the woman, she would scarcely allow her husband to deprive her of her rights. Or she would rarely compromise on her rights. That she is not fulfilling the rights of the husband, and at the same time she wants the husband to fulfill her rights. So in a way she's being stingy, and at the same time she's being haris. Similarly the husband, he is not fulfilling the rights of the wife, he is not being kind towards her, but still, what does he want? He wants all the benefits from her, and he wants to get rid of her. So he is being stingy, and he is also being greedy. Also in the general sense, not just in the case of the husband and wife. Generally, people demand their rights a lot. And rarely ever do they focus on giving the other people's rights. Why? Because people are stingy. And it's because of this stinginess, it's because of this shuh, that people have a lot of difficulty with compromising some of their rights. This is why people have a lot of difficulty compromising some of their rights. So for example, if there's someone who is living with their in-laws in the same house, what is the problem generally? That the daughter-in-law wants to cook her way and the mother-in-law wants to cook her way. The daughter-in-law says, this is my kitchen, and the mother-in-law says, this is my kitchen. The daughter-in-law says, this is my husband, and the mother-in-law says, this is my son. Nobody wants to give to the other what is their haqq. So it's not just between the husband and wife, it's in different situations that people have this problem of shuh, which is why they don't want to compromise. They want everything that they deserve, and they don't want to give to the other person, even if it's their haqq. وَإِن تُحْسِنُوا, and if you do ihsan. What is ihsan? Ihsan is in their ibadah of Allah. And what does that mean? أَن تَعْبُدَ اللَّهَ كَأَنَّكَ تَرَاهُ وَإِن لَمْ تَكُنْ تَرَاهُ فَإِنَّهُ يَرَاكَ. So ihsan is in their ibadah of Allah, and ihsan is also in mu'amala, in dealing with their ibadah of Allah, with the servants of Allah. So وَإِن تُحْسِنُوا, if you do ihsan, what does it mean by that? The address over here is to the men in particular. That if you are patient with the wife that you dislike, and still you treat her as other wives that you like. Generally this problem is between who? A man who has multiple wives. So they're being told, the men are being told, that if you do ihsan, how? That despite the fact that you don't like her, despite the fact that she's a burden on you, despite the fact that she doesn't do what you want her to do, you like your other wife more than her, still, if you do sabr, and you treat her the way wives are generally treated. In tuhsinu, this is ihsan on your part. You don't like her, but still you're showing goodness towards her. وَتَتَّقُوا, and you fear Allah. What does it mean by this? You fear Allah concerning their huquq, concerning their rights, and in dealing with the women. You fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That you don't be unjust towards her. You don't do any baghi, you don't do any zulm. No oppression, no injustice. وَتَتَّقُوا فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ, then indeed Allah, كَانَ بِمَا تَعْمَلُونَ خَبِيرًا, then He is ever of whatever you do, He is khabir, meaning He is fully aware. Meaning then Allah knows what you do, and He will reward you for your sabr, for your ihsan, and for your taqwa perfectly. He is fully aware of your situation. What do we learn from this ayah? First of all, we learn from this ayah that both the husband and the wife, they must strive to save their marriage. They must be interested, they must be concerned about saving their marriage, about keeping their marriage, about maintaining their marriage. Many times what happens? That, for example, the girl, she doesn't care. It's her parents who are concerned. Similarly, the husband, he doesn't care. It's his parents who are concerned, or it is his wife who is concerned. Over here, what do we learn? That the husband should be concerned, the wife should be concerned. About what? About saving their marriage. And they should try different things in order to save their marriage. Even if it means compromising. Because if you look at the ayah, the wife has been told to compromise, and at the same time the husband has been told to compromise. How? The wife is going to compromise through sulh, and the husband is going to compromise how? With ihsan. So both need to compromise. Both need to do something. Both need to sacrifice in order to make the marriage work. Because if it doesn't, it's going to affect them, it's going to affect the families, and worse, it's going to affect the children. We also learn from this ayah that if the husband and wife cannot get along with one another, they cannot give each other's rights, then there should be compromise on the part of both. Especially the woman. Especially the woman. There should be compromise on the part of the woman. Why? Because for the man, it's very easy for him to pronounce divorce. He could choose a talaq and that's it, finished. And if she angers him, if she flares him up many times, what happens? Men, in their ego, in their arrogance, they don't care about what the consequences are going to be. And the women, sometimes when they're overcome by emotion, they don't care about the consequences. So here, the woman is being told that she should compromise. Why? Because her compromise is going to lead to greater good. We also learn from this ayah that the solution to problems is not getting rid of what you don't like, getting rid of what you disagree with, getting rid of what you find difficult, but the solution is in accepting the problem. Accepting the problem and dealing with it. Because here the simple solution could have been given that the woman should take khul'. The woman should take divorce from the husband. That's a very easy solution, isn't it? Very simple. You don't like someone? Fire them. You don't like a friend? Don't speak to them. Simple, easy. But it is not going to solve the problem. What is going to solve the problem? That you accept the situation as it is, and then you see as to what you should do, what you can do, what you should leave. That is a solution. And remember that life is going to be full of tests. If you don't accept one test, another more difficult test is going to be sent your way. Remember that. If you don't accept the test that Allah has sent your way, you don't deal with it in the way that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala approves of, then what's going to happen? It's possible that you're going to be given a test that is much more difficult, much more hard. So, Islah is in what? Accepting the difficulty. And nobody's perfect, so you have to accept the weaknesses of the other people. We also learned that in every situation, sulh is better. Compromise is better. In every situation, compromise is better. Compromise in what? In your rights. Why? In order to mend relations, in order to maintain them. Although compromise is much more difficult. So we see that in the rights of zawjiyah, in the rights of marriage. Similarly, in the rights of mu'amala, dealing with other people. In the rights of other relatives. What is better? Compromise. Like for example, you don't get along with your sister. You don't get along with your sister. You share the bedroom with her. You don't like the way that she makes the bed. You don't like the way that she puts her bag on the floor or on the desk. Now what is that you argue every single day? Why do you do this? Why do you do this? Why do you do this? Is it going to change? Is it going to change things? No. Because sometimes you cannot change people's habits. No matter how much you tell them, no matter how much you stop them, you cannot change their habits. So what is better? That you fight with them every day? You have an argument with them every day? Or you just accept the fact that, oh, they're always going to put their bag over there. I will compromise and I will put their bag from the floor to the place where it should go. They're never going to make their bed. So when I get up in the morning, because it bothers me, I'm going to make the bed. You have to compromise. Why? Why do you have to compromise? Because how can you live in an environment that is full of arguments and fights? Can you live peacefully? You cannot. And your heart will always be burning with fire, literally. You will see the bag and you'll be like, oh my God, what's wrong with her? You will shout at her, you will say, she never listens to me. And it's these little issues that siblings have fights over. Friends have fights over. But if you compromise and say, they're never going to listen, it's okay, I'll just do it myself. They're not going to do the dishes, it's okay, I'll just do it myself. You're compromising on your rights. They're not doing what they're supposed to do, which means that you have to compromise. So you are being the upper hand. You are giving sadaqah. And the upper hand is better than the lower hand. مَنْ تَوَاضَعَ لِلَّهِ رَفَعَهُ اللَّهُ. We think that when we're compromising, we are humiliating ourselves. But in fact, what are we doing? We are going higher in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Similarly, if there's an argument between two people, if there's a fight between two people, and one is really on the haqq, it is his right. But what does he do? He gives up his right in order to end the argument. And what's the reward for this person? A house in Jannah. A house in Jannah. So you think that you are giving up your right, giving up some of your money, and you are going to have less. What does Allah promise you? A house, property, real estate. I mean, what is that compared to a few $100s? So, compromise in every situation. In every single situation, it is better. Because if you don't compromise, it's going to lead to fights. It's going to lead to arguments. It's going to take the peace away. And you're not going to be able to focus on your work. You're not going to be able to do what you're supposed to do. Similarly, if you're sitting in the classroom, the person sitting next to you is moving a lot. And one is that the whole time you're thinking, oh my God, I'm never going to sit with this person again. And what's wrong with them? Are you going to be able to focus in class? No. And if you're like, no matter what they do, I don't care, I'm just focusing on my juz. Isn't that going to be better? Yes. I remember that once there was this event in which everybody was giving advice to the person who was getting married. And one of the sisters, she said, marriage is about compromise. Especially on the part of the woman. You have to compromise. If you don't, your marriage is not going to work. Like for example, you have to do the laundry. Every time you go to the washroom, it's possible that the sink is wet and the whole counter is wet. You see all the water, other people don't see it. You have to compromise. And if you pick a fight on just the counter is wet, is it really worth it? It's not. Why did you not put the plates away? Is it really worth having an argument and ruining your relationship? It's not. As-sulhu khair. Sulh is always better. Compromise is always better. Because it leads to goodness in this dunya and also reward in the akhirah. We also learn from this ayah a very, very important lesson. That in doing ibadah, in worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because ihsan is in worship as well as it is in giving the huquq of people. So in doing ibadah, in worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and also in dealing with people, what should a person do? Ihsan. Meaning, try to give more than what the other person deserves. And keep away from injustice. And who should you fear? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with regards to that. The Prophet ﷺ said, he who wishes that he should be distanced and saved from the fire. He who wishes أن يزحزح عن النار, that he should be saved from the fire and is admitted into paradise, then his death should come to him while he believes in Allah and the last day. What is that? Ihsan in ibadah of Allah. And he should do to people as he would like to be treated. This is what ihsan in mu'amala with ibadah of Allah. So, what is the key to success? That a person does ihsan in ibadah as well as in mu'amala. Many times we focus only on one and we ignore the other. But both are necessary. We'll listen to the recitation of this ayah and we'll continue. If you notice the end of the ayah, that وَإِن تُحْسِنُوا وَتَتَّقُوا فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ كَانَ بِمَا تَعْمَلُونَ خَبِيرًا. Sometimes when we're doing ihsan on the other person, it's very difficult. Isn't it? When we have to compromise, it's very difficult. Similarly, we have the ability to be unjust towards them, but we fear Allah. I can shout at them, but I'm not going to. I can yell at them, but I'm not going to. So ihsan and taqwa, they are very difficult. What does Allah say? Allah is watching you. Allah is aware. And notice khabir has been mentioned, not alim. What does khabir mean? That one who is aware of the zahir and the batin. He knows how much you have to struggle. He knows how much you have to struggle. what you're going through in your heart, and what you're feeling and what you're doing. He's fully aware of the zahir and the batin. So if He is aware, if He is watching, don't you have trust upon Him that He will reward you for your sabr? So trust upon Him, rely upon Him, and He will make the situation better.